Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Severity, and today is Friday. Hi YouTube, welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Megan, aka Severity. I am your Friday host, and today we're talking about bones. Interesting. Okay, so I've really enjoyed the other hosts this week. I feel like they addressed it pretty well, different takes on it, but everyone really gave very thoughtful answers. And I thought about this topic for a while, and I'm hoping this won't be a long video because what I have to say I think is pretty simple. For me, I kind of want to address the article, but not so much. If you haven't been watching this week, we are talking about basically using human bone and or animal bone in ritual. And in particular, there's an article and there's a link down in the down bar below talking about this idea of people gathering bones and then selling them to people who maybe can't get them on their own or something and needs them for curses or for other things like that. So yeah, first off, I very much agree with Kara on this point in that collecting human remains from a graveyard is illegal. These people were arrested, or a person was arrested for taking human remains from a graveyard. I don't care if they dug them up. I don't care if they were up on the surface. I don't care. You took it from a graveyard. It's illegal. You got arrested. We live by the law of the land. If that wasn't the law of the land, then okay, maybe you don't get arrested. Now, I still have my personal views about it, but in the basic sense, you got arrested. Now, there's a lot of talk about this person being trans. Yeah, I don't care if you are, lesbian, gay, bisexual, straight, trans, gender queer. I don't care. But that doesn't matter. That has no bearing on whether or not you do an illegal act. A straight person can do something illegal the same way a trans person can do something illegal. It's just the way it is. Now, obviously, there's going to be all sorts of extenuating circumstances. There's that old story about, about a man who steals a loaf of bread for his family. Is that the same as stealing, a diamond bracelet because you like it or something like that, right? Okay, yeah, there's all these exceptions. I know somebody out there could think of some exception in which, it's different for a lesbian like myself than it is for a straight person to commit a crime, right? But in this case, in this very specific case, to me, taking human remains from a graveyard, it's illegal. That particular case, okay? And so I venerate ancestors. So my entire faith is based around the ancestors. It's a hereditary tradition. So therefore, the ancestors are so vitally important. My family in Oka, Canada fought so that they wouldn't turn our ancestral burial ground into an 18-hole golf course. For me, that is sacred resting place. And I very much believe that those are not your bones to do with how you please. That's the way I look at it. The same way in which I do not use animal bones in my practice. Unless it's something that is passed down. So if it is an heirloomed item that is passed down through hereditary tradition, then I will use it. But I believe that we have come so far in our technology and our ability for compassion that we do not need those things anymore. We are able to live a compassionate life. And as a vegan, I don't use that. I will not take something from an animal. I won't take it. Now, people are going to say, well, what about this or what about that? Now, the only exception I can think of to this is a fallen feather. Okay? Now, to me, a fallen feather that I find while I'm walking, birds will sometimes shed feathers. That's just what happens. That's a natural thing. In the same way as if somebody were to cut their hair and give me a lock of their hair. That would be fine because A, there is consent. They are consenting for me to have it. And B, it is something that was not harmful to them in a way. A fallen feather didn't harm the bird, I hope. I try not to. And so I generally will feel the energy of the feather first to make sure that it was legitimately just something that naturally came off in the process. The other item that I will sometimes use is a snake skin that has been shed if I find that in the woods. Okay, so that I would use because that's something that's left behind. It's something that they are no longer using, but their life energy still goes on. Okay, I would not use a dead animal though. So I know some people will find roadkill or something like that, and then they might use the bones from that. I won't use that because to me that carries that animal's energy and they did not consent for me to use it. Now, I have to say that even my ability to use a stray feather or a discarded snake skin, I've called into question, honestly, recently. I've definitely used it in the past, but I probably will not use it in the future because even that to me, it feels like there's still energy left over. And even though it's discarded and even though it's no longer carrying that same energy of the animal the way a bone would, I still don't feel like it's right to use it. So I don't. I really have gotten away from using anything from animals and certainly not from humans. Now, there are some places where you can buy human bones. I did a lot of anthropological studies. So for a while I wanted to be an anthropologist. And I had to be in contact with bones on quite a regular basis. In fact, I can take a skull. I can tell you if it's male, if it's female, how old it was when it died, what its dietary habits were. I can generally tell you pretty close its race. I can tell you, depending on which bone I have, I can tell you how tall it is. I can tell you they were. I can tell you if it was a female, if they had children, if I have, the right pieces. So the idea is I understand bones. I studied them for a long time and I appreciate their beauty and I appreciate the power that they hold. And so those bones that I studied were either for the purposes of identification, in order for either some type of crime to be solved or for sort of the rule out. So where I lived, there was a lot of burials that would happen for settlers and from Native Americans and all sorts of farmers alike. And they would often be buried just in their plots of land. And so when new farms and new houses and new things are dug up, sometimes bodies will be found and they have to be identified to see if they are a recent death or if they are considered old historical type death. Because the newer deaths, if it's a murder, then the police have to get involved and it's a big deal. And so, if you're one of the people like I was, you help the anthropologist, the physical anthropologist, identify whether or not those were remains that were historical in nature, like over 100 years ago. And more often than not, they are. I think it only happened once that it wasn't. So, the idea though was we had a purpose. We had a purpose to be touching those bones. And once that purpose was done, then they go off to their final place and whatever resting place that would be, whatever the case may be. So the idea though is that they're not used for my purposes. Their energy isn't used for some sort of personal gain on my end, like a curse or another spell. I don't feel like that is an appropriate use of human remains unless this was a ancestor. For example, if your grandfather or your grandmother was a Santeria practitioner or a voodoo practitioner or even a hoodoo practitioner, okay? Or any other hereditary tradition or non-hereditary tradition, right? Just say they were regular, an atheist even, right? And they didn't care. And they said, sure, go ahead, use my bones when I'm done, when I have passed on, use my bones for whatever you want. Then sure, okay, that's consent. Go right ahead. Do I agree with you selling them? Unless your family member said explicitly that you can make a profit off of them, then no, I don't agree with that. But I just believe in consent, and I don't think that animals can consent to having their bones used. I don't believe that we have quite that ability to communicate with them yet. I know that they have the ability to consent. We just don't have the ability to communicate with them and understand that consent, if that makes sense. So, in essence, what I'm saying is no, I don't use human bones. I will never use human bones. I don't believe it is a good practice. I think that the practice of taking bones from a resting place, people that you never met, never knew, I think that's wrong. I don't care who you are. I think it's wrong to take bones from a cemetery. I do. That's their resting place. That should be their resting place. And as far as, roadkill or things you find in the woods, I understand taking a feather that's fallen. I understand taking a snake skin that's fallen. I understand taking, an antler that's been shed. I do. I understand all that. And so that I don't have an intrinsic problem with other people doing by any means, but I don't think I will be doing that moving forward. I've, being a vegan is a process, and, you start with stages, and, every stage you learn something new about yourself and you learn more about the world around you. And for me, this is just that next step. And there's some things that we've been conditioned to believe and just conditioned in our everyday life that we don't even realize how we might be exploiting or using animals. And it's hard to sort of wake up and realize that. But once you do and your mind is open, then you have to look for ways in which that you might be a part of that process and how you could choose compassion. Because in reality, that's what it's about. You can say that you want to use animals for your purposes, or that you can try and minimize suffering, but in reality, it's the same as somebody saying they understand privilege but not doing anything about it. This is an opportunity for us as humans to choose the more compassionate route. We do not need to exploit animals. We don't need to. We don't need to have elephants in a circus. We don't need to have animal testing. We don't. There are other ways. And so, for me, I just feel like I'm going to be stepping away from using even shed animal parts. What limited use I had used them in the past, which was very minimal. But even that will stop now. And as far as using an animal's carcass or bones, absolutely not. That animal didn't consent, and it's not okay. Now, do I have an animal? Yes, I have a dog. She is my child. She is part of my family. She's part of my heart and my soul. And as is my tradition for my family, we all are cremated. So, using her bones would not be something that would even cross my mind. Her ashes will go in places that she absolutely loves. And that's the way I feel about it. Just as when I pass, my ashes, will also go to a place I love. So that's just how I think. So I think that's about it, guys. I didn't realize I would get so emotional about this topic. I think it really brought up a lot for what my family went through when they tried to take our burial ground, because though they haven't succeeded in getting an 18-hole golf course, they have succeeded in getting 9. And when you see the place where your ancestors are, and where the sacred heart of your people are. And you see these people coming in wanting to create entertainment because they like the land that it's on. It's wrong on so many levels. And I see that as being just as wrong as locking a tiger up in a cage or making an elephant give rides, you know, or any number of things. It's so wrong to me. And so to me, collecting human bones from their final resting place is an affront. It's an affront to those people. And I know I would be personally enraged if any of my family's bones were ever collected. I just, sorry, it's so saddening to me that there are people out there who are actually doing this and who think it's okay. I just, sometimes I want to have this beautiful, the rose-colored glasses are on, and you see everything for the beauty and the wonder that it is in the world. And then other times it's like, wow, this is such a state humanity is in, where we, torture and rape and murder other creatures so that we can have a tasty burger, so that we can, cover something in bacon. And what's bacon but pig flesh? Or we take human bones. Those are people's mothers and fathers and daughters and sons. Those are people's loved ones and spouses and partners. And would they really want their bones to be used to curse somebody? I guess it makes me sad. So that's all for today, guys. I hope that you're having a wonderful week. And yeah, I think that's about it. So I will say goodbye. I hope you have a great week. And as always, blessed be and aloha.